What's on your mind?
Yeah, I had a question where about icons and where they talked about biblically.
Well, we covered it for a long time last night, but again, icons come out of the principle of God himself being an iconodual, because he gave to Israel all kinds of iconographic imagery in the temple and the tabernacle. When the early church set up its liturgical practices via the apostles crafted a liturgical worship service out of the temple and the synagogue liturgy. So it was natural for the church, because of them having altars in the first century. Paul in Hebrews 13 says that the church has an altar. And because we believe in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist and the sacraments, that sanctification of matter that he engaged in, it was therefore natural that the church would continue the Jewish practice of images.
Okay, and then this is also works for saints as well.
It's the same principle, yes, correct.
And then I also had a question for book recommendations, specifically for the history of the early church from after the death of Jesus.
Most people really enjoy Father Stephen DeYoung. That book is very good for showing what the first century church's teaching was. And then I would say you can also just begin to read the Apostolic Fathers themselves. So be sure and read the letters of Ignatius, Clement, Polycarp, etc. Those are good things to read. That'll give you an idea of the first century church.
All right, I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, good questions, man. Also watch the documentary that our friend Lewis made, which we referenced many times last night. Orthodox Shahada, the documentary on Old Testament worship and how it has a perfect continuity with the Orthodox Church. So you'll note that pretty much everything that we do is derived from the Hebrew liturgy, whether temple or synagogue. This is even down to icons. So ancient synagogues, as you can see, look at the walls. They look exactly like Orthodox churches. And that's because the Orthodox Church and its liturgy developed out of the Jewish synagogue temple service. So look at the ancient Jewish priest, the high priest. He looks exactly like an Orthodox priest or bishop. Same stuff. We have an altar, Hebrews 13, which those who serve at the earthly temple have no right or access to. So you see this liturgy here, this divine liturgy image here. This is exactly what is identical to what's going on in Revelations when John sees into heaven. This is our view, this is our position. It's actually 5 through 8, chapters 5 through 8. People keep thinking I'm saying Revelation 5:8. No, I'm saying chapters 5 through 8. If you look at chapters 5 through 8, that's when John sees into heaven. He sees what's a heavenly liturgical worship service. And we know this because it's the same imagery out of the Old Testament temple service. So all of this stuff is coming from the tabernacle temple service in the Old Testament. He sees robes, he sees incense, he sees the elders, he sees the worship of the Lamb. Here's what I was looking for. So this Revelation 5, so that the Lamb is seen in heaven as slain. Do you see that? And they worship him. The elders fall down and worship him. By the way, this proves Jesus is divine because they're worshiping him in heaven. That's the same thing that's happening right there. You see what the priest is doing this? We believe in the Orthodox Church that this event right here is the same event as here. The heavenly worship is on earth now. That's what Jesus brought for his church, which is different from what's going on in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, you have a type, a symbol, a foreshadowing of the reality that is this. This is why Protestantism is false. One of the many reasons. But this is huge. This aspect is completely devastating. Because if this is true, Protestantism is totally false. That table right there, that table, that is the altar of Hebrews 13 that Paul talks about. And it is this heavenly lamb liturgy that's mentioned here.